Guys, I'm Liran Bromberg.
And I'm Patricia, and for a senior internship, we actually decided to come up with conceptual designs for New England Mobile Book Fair. Thank you. Okay, so typically when you do an internship, you go to an office and you have like a supervisor and stuff like that. Our project is a little bit different. So we actually, the owner of the store, Mr. Lyons, decided that one of his friends, Mr. Walter Adams, who's an architect in Wellesley, would be the supervisor for our project. So I worked inside the school where I had access to Revit and all my architectural programs and stuff like that. And so he just came in to the building, saw us maybe every 2 weeks and something like that, and just supervised our project onwards. So we did an internship, but it was very self-motivated. It wasn't more like supervised hours. We didn't go to an architectural office. We're more like driving ourselves kind of thing. So Liran's gonna talk about the description of the project and the building and all that.
All right, so just to give you guys a brief history of what New England Mobile Book Fair is, it is a bookstore. It's in Newton Highlands. It's been there since somewhere in the 1960s. We're not exactly sure when. And just a few figures about it. It's 32,000 square feet over 2 floors. Most people don't know that because the second floor is actually for employees only. It's a storage area. And it houses over 2 million books, both on the stacks and in storage, which is quite impressive. So just the way that we came into doing this project is that Mr. Lyons, the owner of the store, he wanted to redesign parts of the store, and so he, who's actually good old friends with Dr. Tiki, who works at Newton North, he asked him, does anybody at the school think that they could help out and redesign parts of the store? Dr. Tiki brought it to the architecture teacher, Mrs. Shurtleff. Mrs. Shurtleff brought it to us, and we were like, that sounds like a great idea for a capstone project. So we took it on, and that's how this project got started.
Okay, so the first meeting we had, Mr. Adams and Mr. Lyons came together, and what they did is they just gave us a few goals of what they wanted. And the first thing was coming up with an architectural drawing. That's an architectural drawing for all those who don't know. And they wanted to come up with possible designs for the, they have a checkout area, and they wanted possible redesigns for the service area, which is now maybe shipping. It has a book signing area, and it has like a wrapping station all in one place. And then they wanted us to come up with another design for the current children's area and possibly add in a reading area. And then Mr. Adams, on the other hand, wanted us to learn about handicap provisions, code requirements for egress, which I'll talk about later, and you'll understand better what that's all about.
All right, so I'm just going to go through and talk about the different areas that Mr. Lyons wanted us to redesign. This is the first one, it's the checkout area. For those of you who are familiar with the store, the front door is right here. It's just off frame. But the biggest problem with the checkout area is that it is way too big. There's plenty of space in here that is simply being wasted. And so the idea was to shrink it down and leave more space to put out more books. The next area is the service shipping area, which, again, if you know the store, is when you walk in the front door, it's straight ahead. This main sort of hallway thing in the middle is what is currently being used for book signings. When the authors come in, they stand up there, give a little presentation, and then sign books. Off behind the shelf to the left, you can see a desk. That's where a lot of the employees work when they're not out perusing the store and reshelving books, things like that. And further in the back, behind that sort of white patterned shelf, is where you can wrap books for storage. No, sorry, not storage. You can wrap books for giving as gifts to everyone, bringing them into schools, things like that. The next area is the children's area. As you can tell, it doesn't really look like a children's area, which was the problem that we were trying to overcome. So like I said, it needs to look more like a children's area. It needs to feel more open, more friendly, more colorful, and it needs to be sort of separated out from the rest of the store. It looks very much, as you can see from this area, from where it says picture books over, that's sort of the rest of the store, and from picture books to the left is the children's area. They look exactly the same, and that was one of the things we were trying to overcome. This area is in the more modern section of the building, and this is where we weren't trying to redesign it as such. The idea was to take what's there, sort of cleared out. The shorter shelves are movable, so we're going to take those out, and then that's where we would have book signings. The problem with this is that in order to use that space, you need to have a certain license, which you can only do if you have a certain kind of coded plan. So that's what Mr. Adams was trying to get us to do, was have the floor plan done so that we can have this space available to be used. This is just another view of the same area from the other angle. You can see it's quite open, and if the lower shelves in the middle are taken out, it would be a perfect area for signing books. So now I'm just going to talk about how we sort of did the project. We started out, we had a fire code plan, which is terrible. It kind of looked like this, except worse. It had a few exterior dimensions, it had a few exterior walls, a few interior walls, and that was about it. So what we did,
I'm gonna move this.
sure. What we did is we took that plan and we used this thing, a scale, and we transferred from the 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that we had onto a computer, just a sort of rough, not very well dimensioned at all, sort of template of the building. And then what we did with that is you can see that there are dimension stringers between the walls. We use those to help the people who are going to help us put in the correct dimensions that we needed. So speaking of the people who are going to help us, you can see this divided into 6 teams. This place is huge, and there's no way that we would have been able to get through all of the measuring by ourselves. So we had to sort of ask for help from the carpentry department, and we got a bunch of people from them. A few of our friends also came. And we spent a couple days measuring the entire store. So we divided it into 6 teams, teams of between 2 and 3. And here, the top section is the template. It's the same thing that we have over there. So what we did is for each section, we blew it up, which you can see on the bottom bottom left. And they would draw in all of the furniture, all the shelves, and write in the dimensions that they found between the walls and between the furniture and the walls, everything like that. And you come out with something like this, which, as you can tell, is quite messy. It's not just messy to you, it's messy to someone who knows how to read architectural drawings too. So the next thing that we had to do is take these, put them all together, and as you can see, there are quite a lot of them. So we put them all together, and we had to put it onto the computer. And that was the part that here you can see Patricia is looking quite overwhelmed. She is realizing how much measuring is in her future. So we split the building down the middle. I took the right half, Patricia took the left half. And each of us is going to talk about the sort of challenges that we found in our section. The main challenge in mine was the measuring. The reason that it was so difficult is because you can see those, like Team 5, Team 6, those are very large areas, and those are filled with shelves, floor to ceiling, all the way down. Like, it's a ridiculous number of shelves, as you saw in the pictures before. But none of them are particularly well made. They're wooden shelves that were made before anyone who's currently working there can remember. And they were made by a single carpenter who just built them for the store, and they're not made to any sort of code, they're just sort of cobbled together. So just to give an example of how the sort of challenges I was working with, there's one shelf that I found, it's right about here, and I measured it, and I didn't believe what my measuring tape was telling me because it was exactly 2 feet wide, and I knew that couldn't possibly be true because nothing was that exact in my area. I'll turn it over to Patricia now so she can talk about her side of the building.
So I did more technical stuff. I did more egress stuff, and you guys are gonna ask what egress is, but I'm going to tell you what egress is. So on this architecture drafting drawing, you'll see a few arrows. There's all of red arrows everywhere, and dashed lines, and all this architectural stuff. So egress pretty much means how safe is a place. Like, it just helps you know how safe is a place for people in case a fire breaks out in the middle of a building. And so, like, I'm trying to think. You're at the farthest point, you're at the farthest point. From that point, putting into like consideration that you have to get the stairway and get out of this room, it's about less than 250 feet. That's kind of what the code says. And architects usually go out, like, keep these codes into consideration, and they think about it and they're like, well, if you're less than 250 feet, then maybe we can put you in that corner. So egress is the same way. And so on this architecture drafting plan, I have travel distances coming to all these corners, like really far in the bookstore. Like, if you were there, you'd be like, if a fire broke out, I am going to be gone. That's kind of how you feel in those corners. But when we did the architecture drafting, when you draw the travel distances to the nearest exit, it actually is less than 200 feet. It is. So you're safe in New England Book Fair, everyone. So go get this. And the red arrows just show how many exits are on the building. Just letting all of you know, not all these exits are used by all of you. But in case a fire broke out, you can use them. And typically they're about 36 inches wide, maybe. And so if we're trying to determine how many people can get out of these doors, the international code and the state code states that each door, each person that can get out should have like 0.15 inches to get out of the door, so 36 by 0.15. Say about 250 people can get out through the door. So if we have about 6 doors in this building, that's 240 by 6. That's how many people can get out of the building in case a fire breaks out. And the capacity of the whole building is less than that, so that means it's a safe building to be in. And then for each of these rooms, we actually have a different code that just tells us how many people can be in these rooms at a certain point. We have mercantile space. Mercantile is just retail space, wherever you can sell stuff. So when you go to Home Depot and find things that you buy, where you're standing, that's mercantile space. And then storage space is like, I don't think you guys have seen the shipping area in New England Book Fair, but it's like 5 conveyor belts where trucks like take books out and stuff like that. That's more like storage and shipping area, which there, you need about, each person should have about 300 square feet. So shipping areas, typically like their shipping area, you'll find like maybe 8 people can be there at a time, or like 8 to 10 people. But then mercantile space, you'll find like it can have about 200 people, 272 people, because each person needs about 30 square feet or so. Another space would be the office space. Office space, typically you'd say about 100 square feet per person, but their offices are small, so typically most offices have like 1 person, 2 people. If you use the code, usually you'll know how many people. So using the code, I did the total number for the building, and it came up to about, the building could take about 648 people, which I don't think I've seen 648 people in that building at the same time, so.
There's still hopes.
Basically, we'll get there, we'll get there. And then on the second floor, we have a special code for stairways. And the only reason that the code is special is when you get into a stairway, you're out of a room but not out of the building. So you're not out of risk. You're out of the place which has fire, but you still have to get out of the building. So if it's a 36-inch door anyway, instead of using 0.15, you would use 0.3 inches. So I would say this door would take out about 142 people from the top floor, but since the top floor is a storage area, not too many people go up there. I would say about, at the same time, there would be about 12 people up there. That's usually because most of the space up there is storage. I think that's it for egress. I'll talk about different stuff. For the code plan, Mr. Adams needs a code plan to be able to get a license for Mr. Lyons to have book signings there. So to have more than, I'd say like 50 people in the building, you need a coded plan, which you take to the building inspector, who will let you know if it's legal to have a couple of people in your building. So hopefully the architectural drawing that we came up with will help Mr. Lyons have more people in the space. Liran talked about the space where there's movable shelves and all that. he has that space, but until he gets this approved by building inspector, he can't have book signings there. So that's the reason why we have to do an egress building. And so this is just blow-ups of the building, floor plans. We'll just show you a walkthrough of the building.
So
you can see
basically
how
what we
close it
did,
is.
the way that this came together is that once we had the 2D plan, we selected each thing and gave it a certain height. And that's how you get something like this, which is a 3D model. And then you can set a path for a camera to walk through at approximately eye level. So this is what it would look like going through New England Mobile Book Fair. So we're outside right now. We're going in through the sort of little hut thing that's at the front, going past the checkout area, and we're turning left and we're going to go through where all the photography books are, architecture books, that's where I hang out, and going into where Patricia's
My
area.
section. So I did put shelves in my section because I just wanted to show you how much space is actually in this building at this point. This is all filled with shelves at this moment. The room we're going into also has ceiling height shelves particularly. But the next room is where the possible book signing is going to take place. Now look at all that space right there. If the shelves are movable wheels and they're moved away, you could have book signing that put the shelves back. And so that's where possibly he's hoping to have book signings. Then just the hallway leading you back out of the space, which will take you back to Liran's space where he'll show you more about.
So we're walking down one of the hallways, past the CMU brick wall. We're going to go out there and turn left, and then take a right, and get into sort of this area, or right here rather, which is where I talked about they had the desks, and the gift wrapping would be back there, and the book signing is currently right down here in the area that we're walking through right now. Now you can see the front door in the checkout area, and we're going to turn left here. You have offices on your right-hand side, and you've got your stacks on the left-hand side, and we're going to approach this area right here, which is the bathroom. And then it goes into another section, which has the same sort of deal, stacks on the left side, offices on the right-hand side. Just going to go down one of these corridors to show you those crazy dimensions I was talking about. Nothing in here was even. All of the shelves were sort of askew, nothing lined up perfectly. This is where the children's area is going to be. That shelf will hopefully not be there. We're going to turn right down here, back down the hallway towards the front entrance. Now the stacks are on your right side and the offices on your left. It's the same hallway we went down before, in case you're lost. Just going to keep walking down here, turn left back out the front door, and turn around so you can get a view of the front of the building. So again, this is the checkout area. One of the spaces that we need to redesign. That's way too much space for a checkout area, and all that space is being wasted currently. So now we're outside the building. It's going to turn around rather slowly, and then you can see the front of the building again.
Okay, so we're going to talk about our best and worst memories, and I would totally say my best memories was seeing my friends get out of their beds at 8 a.m. Leah, I remember getting you from your house at 8 a.m. Saturday morning, it's freezing cold, and we're going to measure the New England Book Fair. And just walking down the hallways and having teachers ask you, how's that going? And people were like really interested. The staff of New England Book Fair was so helpful. I couldn't even imagine if someone was changing the space you've known for so many years, you wouldn't be as helpful as they were. So that was personally my best memory. My worst memory was not too bad, but I just consider my worst memory. I do not like the cold, and I had to measure the outside of New England Book Fair. I just did not like it. But it was fun because I was doing it with people like I really cared about, and I was like, you know what, well, let's enjoy this while we still can. So.
Before I get to my best and worst memories, I just want to tell you sort of where the project is now, because we didn't have a slide for that. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to get to the actual designing part, the redesigning part, because the documenting of existing conditions was so much more complex than we had thought it was going to be. It took so much more time than we thought it was going to. But we have certainly started a relationship with the New England Mobile Book Fair, and we hope that future Newton North architecture students can rise up to the challenge and pick up where we left off. Sort of how that would work is your basic design process. They make some designs based on what Mr. Lyons wants. They, sort of, if there are two people, I would come up with something, Patricia would come up with something, we would bring those together, mix them around, see what works, see what doesn't, and then we would present it back to Mr. Lyons. He would give us some critiques, give us it back, keep redoing it. So that was the plan. Unfortunately, we never got to it, but as I said, that's up to the next generations of students now. I'm going to start with my worst memory because it was pretty bad. About 2.5 months into my project, my computer crashed and all of my files were corrupted and were completely lost. So 2.5 months of work was gone in a day. And my best memory was about a week after that when I was able to, it went faster the second time, and I was able to do all of that work that had taken 2.5 months in a single week. And I got back up to where I was supposed to be, and I had caught up and even gotten past where Patricia went.
Okay, so this is the time to do a thank you. So I'll start with Ms. Samaha, Mr. Kinosi, and Mr. Singh Warrior. There you are. Initially they had tried to get us to do this as an SYP project, but we really want to do it as an internship, and it's not a typical internship, so they gave us an amount of trust. And we really appreciate it because we got to do what we wanted, and thank you so much because it was totally worth it. We would like to thank Mr. Adams. Thank you so much. You are a wealth of knowledge, and thank you so much for showing us what we're actually going up for in our profession.
Fantastic job. I did sort of usurp the process, as you said, as we had to get the base building correct and defendable in terms of the codes before we could get to Tom's redesign. So I apologize, Tom. But now you've got the foundation, and this is the hardest part of the job, is documenting the existing conditions.
Yeah, learning the codes.
Yeah. Okay, and I would like to say thank you to Ms. Shertla. She is our drafting teacher. She had 3 capstone students this year, and she had a regular classes, so you could just imagine what was going on in the classroom. But thank you. You gave us everything we needed. And then, thank you to Ms. Fine. Thank you. Even if you were late, we still love you. It's okay. We still love you. She was an amazing mentor. She just kept us going. I remember those days when you kept on saying it's a dump, and then after a while when you saw us get into it, you were like, it could be something, right? You now believe it's going to be
It's
something,
an amazing
right?
story, and we're lucky to have it in Newton.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Tingle. Thank you for this today. For those who don't know, Mr. Tingle actually took 2 days off his classes and brought his group out to New York Book Fair. So 2 days, no classes. He drove the van. We had to complain about them taking us to McDonald's, and that was hard. But thank you for sacrificing time to give it to us. Thank you. I want to thank Anthony, Leah, and Gabe. Those are amazing people. They are the ones who go to their beds at 8 a.m. on Saturdays to come help us measure. Leah, thank you. We'd like to thank Dr. P. Thank you so much. I do not know you so long. We would like to thank our parents because we both know that our parents need a lot. I'll tell you, trusting us to do this instead of taking classes for the last half of senior year must have been a big thing. But thank you. Like, my mom kept me going. Oh my God. There were some days when I was like, Mom, can I stop? And she kept me going. And Liran's mom, thank you as well. Most of all, let's thank Mr. Lyons and the people that work for you. You guys are amazing. Thank you for giving us your building. Thank you for being open-minded about the design we're coming up with, and to trust 18-year-olds in high school to design a big building like that. 32,000 square feet is hard. It's a lot of space. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope that next time.
That's
Dedication and maturity that you showed, especially my staff. That was
Thank you. Thank you.
all right. So that is it. I think there's another presentation, and then we'll take questions after that. So thank you, guys.